So normally on this day, we use the text from the Last Supper, but today we're going to look at a different text that I think is really important in today's world, and it's from Luke 14, and here it goes. One Sabbath, when Jesus went to eat in the house of a prominent Pharisee, he was being carefully watched. When he noticed how the guest picked a place of honor at the table, he told them this parable. When someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host will invite both of you. Wait. So I usually print this at like 22 font, and I didn't do that today, so pray with me. Okay. So let me go back. So when someone invites you to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you may have been invited. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, "Give this person your seat." Then, humiliated, you will have to take the least important place. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when the host comes, he will say to you, "Friend, move up to a better place." Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Then Jesus said to the host, "When you give a luncheon or a dinner, do not invite your friends, your brothers or sisters, your relatives or rich neighbors. If you do, they may invite you back, and so you will be repaid. But when you give a banquet, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed. Although they cannot repay you, you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." The name of this message is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? Will you pray with me? Holy God, help us to become masters of ourselves, that we might be the servants of others. Take our minds and think through them, our lips and speak through them. Take our hearts and set them on fire. Amen. Over 50 years ago, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner came out. Can you believe it? Remember it? Sidney Poitier, Katharine Hepburn, Spencer Tracy. It was pretty amazing, but it was also very controversial for its time. The movie, if you remember, centered on a newly engaged interracial couple who decided to introduce their families each to the other over dinner, of course. And the plot kind of centered on this family meal and learning about the racial differences only either right before the meal or right at the meal when they arrive at the house. Now, this theme today may not seem to be a very big deal, right? But in 1967, it was a big deal. Why? Because it was still illegal to marry interracially in many states. Can you believe that? In 1967. What they did in this movie, though, is it reminded us that indeed, and I encourage you to watch it again if you've not seen it for a while, what can happen around a table, and especially when you put two loving mothers around a table, where they finally realize that the power of love can overcome all the challenges we have in this world, and that table becomes a place where we truly learn about one another and about becoming family. Now, we might all be inclined to say that we have come a really long way. I don't know if you've seen it, but do you know that Snoop Dogg and Martha have their own cook-off show? It's true. I've not seen it yet. I'm not sure I will, but these two are hanging out together and doing cooking shows. One would think we've totally made it past those kind of issues and we checked it out of the box, but that's not really true, is it? I mean, we still live in a world where we struggle with black and white, right or wrong, those who are in and those who are out. Perhaps these days we don't see that as much around the dinner table as they did in the movie. And not because it's not there, but because the dinner table isn't there. People are not really eating dinner together anymore. I mean, it says that Americans eat 1 of every 5 meals in their car. 1 in every 4 Americans eats at least one fast food meal every single day, and the majority of American families report eating 1 meal, if that, every week together. Just 1 meal as a table. Studies also show that these not eating together practices have really had a pretty negative effect on children, physically, mentally, emotionally. Students who do not eat with their families regularly struggle with truancy, struggle with grades, oftentimes struggle with alcohol, oftentimes quit school totally and completely. Now, other studies show, of course, that children who eat dinner with their parents 5 days a week are less likely to get in trouble with drugs and alcohol. They're healthier. They show better academic performance, and they report being closer to their parents. So, now we have the research, right? A research to back up what Jesus said 2,000 years ago. It's important to eat together. Fred Craddock, a famous minister, once said, "There is nothing more serious than the dinner table. It's the place where Jesus offers communion and the promise to always be with us in the presence of the Holy Spirit. The table plays a central role in his ministry and is the place where Jesus gathers with his friends and acquaintances. It is where he builds community. It's the place where he welcomes, and he welcomes the least, the last, the lost. He welcomes all God's children, those who've been discriminated against." See, Jesus used the table as a place to not only break bread, but to create a sense of fellowship and hospitality meant for everyone. The scripture text we're looking at today is a reminder of just how important it is to dine together, but not only to dine together. It's important to see who is sitting at the table and also who we think we are sitting at the table. If I think I am in any position where I am higher or in a more prominent place than somebody else, then Jesus is suggesting we need to think differently. Because when we come to the table, there's room for everyone right where you are. He says, I didn't come here to take a seat of privilege and to become some person who thought highly of themselves. No, we talked about it last week. He said, I came not to be served, but to serve. I came not to gain privilege, but to build community. I came to be the Savior of the world through the gracious gift of love, where all are welcome. And all he asks us to do is the same, is to continue to open our seats at our tables to everyone, not just those people we know. Have you ever noticed in the word hospitality, we love that. I always say, I have the gift for hospitality. We're noting a number of us in the SHAPE class right now have that gift. But I realized something else this past week. In the word hospitality is also the word hostility. Hostility. For there is a chance, my friends, when you are sitting down at table, when you're passing the rolls and saying the grace, there is an opportunity to offer topics and subjects that will bring pain, discomfort, fear, and disagreement, hostility. At every table sits the Facebook post that garnered support from half the table and disdain from the other half of the table. And those are the topics we're willing to talk about. Keep in mind that everybody who comes to the table also comes with a story we're not talking about. We're not talking about the family member who's struggling with addictions, not only to drugs and alcohol, but to work. We're often not talking about the kid who can't sit still, we just get annoyed, or the teen who cannot wait for the meal to end. At the table, there is the abused and the abuser. There is the giver and the taker. There is the favorite and the forgotten. The things you know about me and the things I don't ever want you to know about me, that is at the table. See, being truly hospitable in today's world means you open yourself up to the possibility of pain. And for some, being truly hospitable and living into your call is really a powerful, life-changing thing. Brother Roger was a monk after World War II in France. And he decided to start this community, a community in Taizé, France, to try to create a sense of reconciliation after the war. He wanted to create a place where you could heal the pain of separation that had happened throughout all of Europe. Taizé was a place and continues to serve as a place where people from around the world, especially young people, would go to participate in silence and prayer, reflection, and retreat. It is a place and continues to be a place where all people are welcome. In 2005, during a common communion prayer service, Brother Roger, who is 90 years old, his life was taken by a young woman who was struggling with mental illness, a mental breakdown. He reminds us all that with hospitality also comes great risk. Now, what really amazes me is the community continues to be open and continues to be a place of welcome to all people, but we must be honest with ourselves that being hospitable can lead to hostility at times, disagreement, conflict. But there's also an amazingly strong possibility of resolution. And I believe, my friends, I believe this morning especially is a prime time for opening and sharing in table together, providing space for hospitality, yes, and hostility, conflict, and resolution. With votes in our government being so tough or so close, with tough races where we hear candidates calling each other out and not talking to each other, where family members are actually doing ads against family members, it is time to sit down for a meal. For it's been done in the past and it worked. It worked then, and I guarantee you it will work again today. Because in the midst of hostility, there is hospitality and opportunity. We can and we will be fed. See, at this table, Jesus gifts us with this amazing energy that we so often forget about. It's this Spirit, it's this pneuma, it's this Holy Spirit, it's this advocate that Jesus promises us that he will leave for us, and it will never leave our presence. If we could find a way to trust in that Spirit, I believe that we could come to every table in the power of the mystery, and God would create reconciliation. God would create reconciliations for our families, for our communities, for our government, for our world. That Spirit can work through all of our humanness and bring new life into this world. And that's what we need to trust in today's world. We have seen it happen before. We have seen the power of the Holy Spirit. We talked about this not long ago. It was on Being. There was an interview shared with two young men, Derek Black and Matthew Stevenson. Black was raised in a white supremacist household. His godfather was David Duke. He was raised believing that multiculturalism was responsible for oppressing white people in their own country. He believed there was a great conspiracy of Jewish power. When he went off to college, his role in this movement continued. He believed the ideology. Some other students found out about it, and soon Black was, just inundated with hateful messages, was inundated with people who were upset about him being in their presence. He had that kind of experience with most everyone until one day he received a text. He received a text from Matthew Stevenson, who just happened to be an Orthodox Jew, who on Friday nights had Shabbat dinners. So he simply texted Derek Black, "Hey, what are you doing for dinner on Friday night?" Guess what? Black came. He came once, and then he came again, and he went over and over again on Friday nights for meals. Now, years later, these two continue to be the very best of friends, and they share their stories. See, it was Derek Black loving Matthew Stevenson that made him realize that his ideology was perhaps misguided. It was him loving somebody who he thought had a negative energy towards him, and then them trusting that spirit, that transformed their lives. And now they continue to transform lives everywhere. It's possible, my friends, and it happens at Table. When I was in seminary, I participated in a program in Northern Ireland. It was called Pacem in Terris, which means peace on earth. Pacem in Terris worked with both Protestant and Catholic kids. If you remember, there was a time where they had the Troubles, where Protestants and Catholics were harming one another. And we had learned that if a kid had an opportunity to learn another kid's last name or surname, chances of them being involved in a violent act against not only that individual, but anybody with the same last name fell dramatically. And so the decision was made that we would try to bring these kids together just once a week and participate in some activities or games that were not competitive. So all week long, we were camp counselors for either Protestant kids or Catholic kids. And then one time a week in the afternoon, we would attempt to bring them together to participate in just getting to know one another's names. The first thing we realized was this is very hard to do when you allow kids to wear the jerseys of the soccer teams that they're following. Because in Northern Ireland, it means a lot, the team you're following. It took us a little while to realize this, and so then we started having the kids turn their jerseys inside out. And then they would come and try to play, and we continued to have trouble until finally the decision was made to have the kids have lunch together. The decision was made that we would not just do the afternoon program, but we would bring the kids together and share in lunch around table. So you had Mr. Sullivan meeting with Mr. O'Connell. You had Mary and Margaret. You had the crazy, I was deemed, the over-friendly American. You had all kinds of people come together. And eventually, we found community. Eventually, we found a way to trust that spirit. And I would like to say that it was a meal like this that was probably happening with their parents or maybe their politicians that then began to transform the community. Now, is it perfect in Northern Ireland today? No, it's not perfect. But the divisions that used to define community no longer define community. Londonderry, or Derry, depending on if you were Catholic or Protestant, is a community that was pretty divided. In fact, the names of the community, Londonderry, one existed on one side of the city, and Derry existed on the other side of the city. Pretty divided community. But it was a group of people who decided that they were more committed to their community and their future than they were to their resentments. So starting long before, and this is the community that Black Sunday took place in, long before the Troubles ended, they started trying to build community around table. And eventually, they have found a way not only to share in community, but they have a statue that speaks volumes for them about how important it is to come beyond our divisions. The neatest thing is just this summer, there is a river that is between the two communities, and just this summer they have built a bridge, a foot bridge for people to walk back and forth. When people have a willingness to come together and share in food and trust the Spirit, God can take years of resentment and pain away so we can be together. Friends, I think that starts at our own tables. I think that starts at our own tables with the siblings who look at life different than you do, with the parent that doesn't understand why you do what you do, with all the people in your life. If you have a willingness to come to table, God will go to work. So today is Worldwide Communion Sunday. I'm going to invite everybody here to share in communion in a different way. We're going to share in Holy Communion today with the goldfish that you find at your table. And I'm going to invite you when the time comes to take those goldfish and really be mindful of someone who you have not invited to your table lately, or someone that you're challenged with, or maybe some resentment that you hold. I want you to name it and claim it. But I also want you to serve the person who is across from you and let them know that this is the love of Jesus for you that can bring new beginnings to your life if you trust it. Then we're going to invite you with whatever you have there, whatever you're drinking today, whatever you're drinking, whether we know about it or not. We're going to invite you to take that cup and be mindful that this is the cup of new beginnings. This is the cup of love poured out for you and for many. This is a cup for all people. And this is where Jesus goes to work. When we have a willingness to come to table with a love that will not let us go. We share in Holy Communion, as I said today, in a little different fashion. But we're also going to provide the traditional fashion. So during this song, if you choose to share in Holy Communion where you are, great. If you want to make sure it works and come down and have a little more, we'll let you do that as well. But we do believe indeed that the Spirit of God is among the people of God and can and will transform your very life today. I'm going to invite Penny forth. We remember on the night which Jesus was betrayed, he took bread. He lifted it to heaven and he gave thanks to God, and then he broke it. He gave it to his disciples, his friends. He said, "Take and eat. This is my body given for you. As often as you eat, remember I am with you and I am with the other, and I love you. For this is new life." Body of Christ given for you. Take and eat, and you are made new through the love of Christ. In like manner, Jesus took the cup, lifted it to heaven, and gave thanks to God. Then he gave it to his disciples, his friends. He said, "Take and drink of this, all of you. This is my love poured out for you and for many for the forgiveness of sins. As often as you drink, remember me and how much I love you." the love of Christ given for you. Take and drink. Let's pray. God, through your awesome love, grace, and mercy, we can be hospitable. We can work through hostility and conflict to resolution. Bless us with your Spirit. Bless us as we leave this place with a new life and a new beginning. And always, always, God, remind us that there is room at the table for everyone. Amen.